who's the owner of the lyrics? And then the question...
Does that mean who has written it, who wrote it?
No.
Or does that mean the company that owns
right? Probably the company that owns it, which is nearly impossible to figure out. But you could probably do that.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to write to them. They're going to have to ask them for, I'm going to make a derivative work. Can I use this derivative work? Then they're going to be like, what? Right? They're going to be like totally confused. But you're going to ask them, like, can I use this? I want to make 100 million quilts with using these lyrics. May I do that? So the other question is that I would have is how much of the lyrics are you using? And why are you using it? Now, because there was another woman here in town that was doing some really cool stuff with song lyrics. And what she was doing was she was taking the lyrics and then she was not taking all of them, but sort of the heart of the lyrics and then it was part of the expression of the quilt. And that's a different thing with copyright. Is that what you're doing?
So, no, I'm doing every single lyric except like the chorus. So it's a story, and to leave out one piece of it would not tell the whole story.
Very interesting.
I'm more doing it. It's just very, very healing, and it's a very healing and very cathartic for me it's very freeing, the method that I'm using, but it's just very, the message is so wonderful to me.
And you're putting in your quilt. So, yeah, I mean, I think personally it's still a fair use. I mean, what we're trying to do is gather stories. So copyright isn't like, everyone thinks it's not like, copyright is a little complicated. So what I'm doing is when you all ask questions of me, I know what I think is the answer. But I'm also asking lots and lots of different attorneys and law professors and people who work at studios and others these same questions so that we have a base of knowledge that everybody kind of agrees that that's what's the case, like a common norm.
Gotcha.
And so my feeling is, who cares? It's fine. That would be my thought. But I'm going to keep asking people. But I think that I understand the woman's caution. I totally get that. And I think, like, what do you do? I think the question is so was she afraid that, like, their group would be sued by somebody? Like, what was her worry? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think she had a specific worry. It must have been something
just vague
about the group, because she said, don't put it on the Quilt Guild website.
Well, I mean, I think that, you can. So here's fair use. Fair use is you're transforming it into something else. You're not it's not a market replacement for the original. You're only using as much as you need, even if that's the whole thing. And that you're commenting and criticizing the original work. That somehow it isn't just that you're lazy, but that you use that work because it's something that you're using to make another message. Does that make sense? Like, and we have lots and lots of examples of that. So I think that's kind of what you were doing, right? So also it was a personal use. You're not selling them, so I think you're fine. Now, what do you say to the woman, and this happens all the time, that is afraid of it? Now, either you just say, fine, right? Okay, no problem. Or you say, you know what, right. I've consulted and I've done some research on this, and I think we're okay. But I'll take the liability. I'll take responsibility. If there's a problem, I'll take that responsibility. Because the only thing that would happen is someone would tell the guild to take it down, right? The guild doesn't have enough money to sue it, right? Like, they're not going to be like going after a guild for putting a photo of lyrics on a website. That's stupid. That's not worth. I mean, right?
I love how you put that. Like, I'm like, biting my nails. Oh no, what do I do? Right? Like, that's dumb. Like, it is dumb. You're right.
Right.
It's dumb.
Now, Prince went after. So this is really interesting. The other thing is Prince. He went after a mom who had a little baby, and in the background, so they were in one of those walker things, and it was a little baby, and it was running around the kitchen, and it was bouncing, and you could barely hear a Prince song in the background, and he sued them. Now, I think it was a mistake, and he was very protective of all of his intellectual property, but it went all the way. It hasn't gone up to the Supreme Court, but it went really far, and it's been 10 years. This case has been, maybe, did it go to the Supreme? No, I don't think it did. Anyway, so it's like a really, really famous case, and they did a notice. They they made they made YouTube take the video down. The mom said, no, I think I have a right to have it up. And the mom won. And the court said, like, look, copyright holder, it was a fair use. It's incidental. Like, you can't, it's not a market replacement for the song. It's in the background, and it's okay for the mom to use that, to have that song playing when her kid is dancing and her being ridiculous about it. So, like, the courts aren't like just saying, copyright holder, you get everything you want all the time, right? They're saying, no, it's a balance. So, and we're getting more and more spaces for fair use and for incidental uses and permissible uses and fan fiction and fan art. Like, it's a world that is accepting of that more and more. So coming back to the quilt stuff, you put lyrics on a quilt, nobody cares, right? I mean, really, nobody cares. And now we've got is it Cherrywood Fabrics who's doing the thing for, I mean, this one is amazing to me. So the woman who's doing Cherrywood does these like Van Gogh, she does dyes fabric. And then she has these competitions, or like you can, as long as you buy her fabric, you can enter your quilt in. And so they have this Van Gogh thing. They've had Wicked. They've had The Lion King. Well, now she's doing a Prince challenge using purple fabric that she dyed. And from what I know, I don't know if she got permission from the estate or not. It's kind of a tribute to Prince. She's using Prince, and nobody seems to be very much bothered by it. So if Prince Estate is not bothered by someone doing a Cherrywood thing about Prince, using the Prince logo and the Prince name in this whole thing, and it's commercial, no one's going to care about your lyric quilt. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's just perspective. So, and I understand people trying to be good citizens and they're worried. But again, I think, I don't know, I've talked a lot, but I think that you just let people know, that's very good. I'm glad you're being cautious. I've done some research and I think I'm okay, but if not, we'll just take it down and I'll take the responsibility if there's a problem, right? Because there's not going to be a problem.
Okay.
There's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? And if there is, you're going to go to some let's say lunatic person that owns that lyrics decides to go after and sue you, right? Let's say it does happen, which could, right? Because people are lunatics in the world. You come to someone like me, right? You go to EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, who helped the mom with the baby. Like, it becomes big news that some lunatic is suing some quilter because they use the lyrics in a quilt, right? Like, that's huge. And, like, the whole copyright community is going to be like, that's not cool, right? So it isn't like you're alone if there's a problem, because we want our ecosystem to be reasonable. Does that make sense? So,
yes, it does. Yes.
So if someone comes after you, your first call, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a law professor, but you can't call me and then I'm like, okay, let's get you to somebody who can help you, because that's stupid, right? That's just somebody not understanding how copyright law works. So
yeah, I think the more I thought about it, it made sense.
You just
I just didn't know, but I think my first response when she said that was just to sit there with my mouth hung open and go, oh.
Well, and
I don't know.
And I'm not like we didn't plan. I mean, we planned to talk, but I'm just saying that I think the goal of this project really is, in the end, is having a little booklet in the quilt shops that explain this in really simple terms, so that all of the quilt guilds and the quilters are on the same page and have feel confident in what they're doing. They're not afraid of copyright, because copyright's not scary if you understand. It's like if you didn't know the rules of the road, right? If you didn't know what a stop sign meant, you would be freaking out, right? Like, does that mean a go or not go? I don't know. And that's exactly the way I think copyright feels to me in this world at the moment, is that you guys just don't know, and I think you'd feel more comfortable if you did.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
Well, I think it's going to be at least another 4 or 5 years till this quilt hits the Instagram or Facebook. I've worked on it for 2 years and it's not quite halfway done. It's it's a lot of work, but it's so fun.
That's so cool.
Fun.
So tell us a little bit about, we promised that we'd go a half an hour, and we're almost at a half an hour. It's not possible.
Are we already there?
No, we're not. We're at 23 minutes. But I'm just telling you, it's nearly impossible to talk for half an hour. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So tell me about what you're doing, because we were talking about the strategy of, the technique that you're using for this quilt. Tell me about that.
So I bought this book by Tanya Rickey. It's called Wordplay, and she has all the
right. She's
letters.
Like a thing. Right. Sean Kimber, who's a huge artist, that's how she learned how to do her word quilts. Like, everybody uses
Oh,
this.
really?
Yeah. Wordplay.
It's fantastic.
I've put it on my birthday list.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And, you definitely want this book. So basically, it's no rotary cutter. It's no measuring. You take your scissors and your fabric, and you're like Edward Scissorhands. You slice and dice, and you make these letters. And she has the general idea, but all your letters are going to be of different sizes. So I try to make capital A, lowercase a, capital B, mix it up. So there's lowercase and uppercase, and they're different sizes. And then I'm using all white or neutral backgrounds, and all the words are black.
Wow, cool.
But all the neutrals have, the different little bits in them of color. And then the end result is I trim everything to 5 inches. Now, some words are kind of slanted off to one side. So it's just very, very organic looking, very freeing. So when you're sewing this with Tanya's book, when you're using her as these pages as a reference, you have scissors, you have your sewing machine, you have your black and your neutral, and you're just stitching. It's the best thing to not stop and measure and make sure your seam allowance is a 1/4 inch, and make sure the seam is flipped this way. It's just, I can't even explain how freeing it is. Just putting your blocks together like this.
It is. There's a
I am having a ball doing it. So I can smile and laugh.
That's really great. Yeah, I totally. Yeah. I took a G's Bend class here that some women had gone to the G's Bend thing in Alabama, and then they were doing a class. I did go to the Alabama one, but they had one here. So I haven't made it to Alabama, but I've made it. I'm like a once removed. So I took a class for people who had been in Alabama, but I totally want to go there. We should meet there because they are all improv, right? They do all the improv stuff. And the class was amazing.
That would be awesome.
It was freeing, right? There's a kind of like, you can make beautiful things without being stressed out. It's really cool.
Have no fear. Yeah. There's a quilt block that I want to make that is from G's Bend. And I didn't learn about it until the Michelle Obama portrait with her dress that had the different quilt blocks on it. And they said it's from G's Bend.
Yeah.
And one of the blocks just stuck out to me. It's pine burr. Yeah. A pine burr quilt block. It's folded fabric. I'm in love with it. That's going to be my next obsession after I get these other obsessions off.
That's really great. I have to look that up. Yeah, that dress.
Yeah,
For those that don't know, Michelle Obama's portrait at the National Portrait Gallery is gorgeous in the portrait, and it was inspired by G's Bend's quilts, according to the artist.
Right.
And so that really brought G's Bend into prominence again because people had to. And G's Bend, for people that don't know it, is what? Tell our listeners, in case they don't know what G's Bend is, what that is.
It got me going on it. I had never even heard about it.
G's Bend,
almost ashamed that I hadn't. But.
No. G's Bend is a group of women that were super isolated, fairly poor community, African American community, that quilted on their own. They got noticed during the Civil Rights Movement, and then again, I think in the, I'm going to say late 80s, early 90s. I could be wrong. Maybe 2000. I've interviewed I don't remember. Anyway, so there's a second wave of it, and we're also interviewing a historian and a law professor who wrote an article, a law review article on them. So then this guy one day came through and saw their quilts and bought out lots and lots of them, and they became super famous. Like there was Kathy Ireland, I think, had a line of home stuff with their stuff, and like there's just tons and tons of stuff. And so now there's a foundation for them. They do classes. They continue. The tradition continues, and their quilts are very expensive now. They're like a super huge thing. There's a play about them. There's they've had a lot of exhibitions. The local museum here bought a few of their quilts recently. They're trying to have museums buy their quilts, or maybe they're giving them to the museums. I don't remember. The woman from the foundation came. I don't remember. Anyway, it's a big thing. So G's Bend, look it up. And they're all improv and interesting, and they use all kinds of different fabrics, and it's interesting. Now, some people have said, other communities have said, oh, well, we were doing G's Bend too. We just aren't famous for it. So I think that's pretty interesting. So there's a kind of, how unique is G's Bend? how, but they look very modern. They're from they're not, they're going back all the way through